Hello folks, welcome to Goosebumps HorrorTown. This is something that has been requested a while ago, and figuring that this is probably now the best time to do this kind of thing, and kind of have a chance to relook at certain aspects that I did back in the past, to kind of with a better light. As you know, the game is now going through its third anniversary, and unfortunately, there's nothing to look forward to as far as new content goes as of yet. However, I'm still hopeful for the best, especially seeing how, as of late, the game has still been making a profit despite the lowdown, or the slow maintenance stuff. And yeah, it's just gonna be more or less waiting on what's gonna happen in the summer. Hopefully, good news, but until then, we're in limbo. So I figured I might as well do this as we can, and this is basically going to be looking at my overall collection of characters and scenes that I have collected thus far in the game. And this is interesting because this was, for the most part, requested for a while to kind of do, despite me kind of doing. So this is just a whole collection thing. So this was taking place, I think, near the end of April, going into May. And this is going to be an span of 10 videos. And yeah, 10 videos. It's going to be that long. Because I kind of ramble on and kind of do certain things. I don't know. Like, again, this is just going to be something of interest. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to be playing these videos out, like, pre-recorded. And I might put some images here and there. But for the most part, it's just going to be the videos themselves, and kind of like how I did with my Grim plays, so this is somewhat the same thing here. And we'll see how that turns out. So, hopefully you enjoy these 10-part videos, and I'll probably see you near the end of part 10. So until then, let's go ahead and listen back to my previous self talking about each of the characters and scenes I have gotten from beginning to end. This is a long time coming. Well, figuring since we're in a down period and nothing really going to be new added to the game as far as we know for now, might as well do this thing a lot of people have been wanting me to do, which is just a showcase of what I have 100% of. I've been mostly gathering everything I have, and I've been pretty good with coming into each update, talking about what's been added, kind of lores within that stuff, but this is just a huge collection of it, and just kind of talking a little bit of each character on my mind, what they do, all that stuff and more, and just opinions on that kind of situation. So might as well how it was going to work. So I'm going to try to do it by level basis, but there is going to be a bit of how do I put this? Going to be a bit of a interesting, like, I'm going to try following level base, like when you unlock it, the characters from each time there. But I might miss some because some of them have been introduced and there's no book with them, so it's kind of hard to find which level they're going to come in. I'll try my best, but I'll make sure I mention everybody. I've taken notes here to make my life a little bit easier. But yeah, so that's going to go. And then once we've done with the levels, we will be doing the events, which is going to be a lot more easier for me to kind of talk about, since that's going to be, all that stuff and more. But I digress. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So let's talk about the first two characters we get introduced to in the game, and that is our main two cast. First one's going to be Lucy. So Lucy Del Rio, I think is a foreign name. She is the main character of sorts. She is the one who made the Many Mysteries Club. She's the investigator. She is what you refer to as a ascendant. She's the type of bookworm character for the kids of the demographic that the Goosebump books are usually targeting towards. And it's interesting because they kind of varied themselves with different cultures, which is nice because in America there is a lot of different cultures in there. So yeah, so Lucy, I believe, due to her name, sounds like it comes from, maybe I'm going to guess, because where this is from, she might have come from a family down South America, maybe. I don't know. I'm giving a guess, but Del Rio is a bit of a Spanish name, and I don't know. I'm kind of reminded of. Yeah, I digress. It could be something else entirely, but her family, it's almost confirmed that she's from a Latin Spanish ascent from her family wise, because I think she's like uncle. God, it's been so long since I've actually seen these stories before. But yeah, anyways, she is the main kind of character. She is an in-house character, so she's not from any of the books. You might think she is because of the whole Girl Who Cried Monster is associated with her. But no, she is not Lucy Dark. They ended up changing Lucy to Lucille in the game. I'll talk about that more in a bit. Unfortunately, she's not in the game yet, but oh well. Anyway, she has a bunch of tasks here, like, do field research, get some pens, search for clues, basically just research stuff and doing kid stuff like, uh, reading workshop, the read on the ground, and so Girl Scout cookies, handcraft. I don't think I've ever seen reading on the ground, so let's see what that's all about. Oh, it's just her reading the newspaper. So, okay, yeah, so that's her in-game model. Yeah, so that's her for the most part. I think I joked in one of my parts saying that she's basically Lisa Simpson in a nutshell. And she kind of is when you think about it. Anyways, let's go to this next guy we unlock, which is Dustin. Dustin Williams, I believe is his last name. Dustin is your typical bad boy protagonist slash Bart Simpson character. He is that kind of troubled kid who wants to be like, you know what I mean? Like he tends to be like that bad boy persona, but he's not really that bad. In the end of the day, he does what is good, but he kind of he's a bit of a daredevil. Like, what's the typical word for it? He's a bit of an odd one. All right. The Bart Simpson's the best way to describe him. He's that kind of character. His characteristics is basically like that kind of yeah, I'm not good with words, but he's another original character creation. I will mention when we first get our new characters come in that's actually based on books, and I'll go more in depth with that. But yeah, Dustin Williams basically plays as the protagonist of certain things and what you can call here. However, I will note something. I think I mentioned this in one of my videos, but I'll mention it here. Here is a special Easter egg fun fact you may not know. If you pay attention to Dustin's shoes right down there, it is the exact same brand shoes you see in Tim Jacobus's artwork in the Goosebumps original series of 64 series. So anytime you see shoes, those are the type of shoes. I don't know what they're called exactly, but I remember he was talking about the reason why he loved those shoes was because it was something he wanted to get. However, he never could get it because I think his mom didn't want him to. And then, he ended up putting them there as little hints or little nods, signature kind of deal. And yeah, I think there was like an interview done by the #1 Goosebumps Aussie fan. I think he described more than that. I think he also did another review, but it kind of does the same story. But, I digress. Anyways, he does the typical things here, fly a paper airplane, shoot cans, do, homework, do mom stuff, burn ants from outer space, all the typical trying to be that kind of kid. But, yeah, for the most part, he's pretty much harmless for the most part. It's interesting, there's more. Okay, I just noticed that there's like 2 get homeworks done until finished tasks, which is weird. That is really odd, but okay, whatever. Yeah, so let's just have him do the lethal battle thing. There's an animation. I'll talk about you in a minute, but yeah, there's Dustin. He's gonna go and play some video games like he would usually do for a kid like that. So he's gonna go off on his little adventure. And that will lead us to our first introduction scene, which is this right here, the crash site, which is Prince Carew. Prince Carew is the mummy from The Mummy, Curse of the Mummy's tomb. And he also appeared in the Return of the Mummy, I think. Yeah, the second book of I'm trying to remember what it's called exactly. But he did return again, so he is a recurring character. However, in the original book, he kind of came in like real late into the game,
And in the second one, I think they featured him more-ish. It's weird because for a villain that's based on the Mummy book, he's not really in there a whole lot, is he? But this is basically Baby's first scare scene where it introduces you to how this mechanic works. So if I were to press this button here, we'll have him summon around, and this is what he does. He scares. This is what he does. This is what he looks like. And you'd be interested. So this is an in-game model, right? So he looks like a typical bandage mummy, and he's kind of done. So he was able to scare 2 people, so that's good. So that's done there. So there we go. It's interesting. He's yet to see the stuff, his tomb that he's been stuck in and kind of put into a crate. Now, I'm not 100% sure from the book, but this is really apparent from a... This reminds me, there is a episode of Tales from the Crypt that has this kind of shenanigans of traveling with a sarcophagus, and it's kind of the same boat here. Anyways, I digress. But fun fact for this, the design for the Prince Carew actually was taking more inspiration from the movie, the 2015 Jack Black movie of Goosebumps. So you'll notice that a lot of some of these things are based off that design, and others are not so much. But yeah, I digress. So anyways, let's go ahead and we're done with that. So now we're going to jump into our next group of characters from the next level. Before I move on to my next character, I might as well kind of do this highlight here so you get a good idea, a good look at this scene in all its glory of what it looks like. So yeah, I do like how they design it to have it so that's related to the trees, and it makes it kind of pop out in a sense that it kind of blends in. And so, they did a good job kind of blending that in. But yeah, that's this here. So that's what this looks like. Destruction car and all that. Right, so let's move on to our next group of people, or characters, shall we say. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So we get to our first actual character based off from the books, and that is Mr.Mortman. Mr.Mortman is the librarian of the book Who Girl the Cried Monster, and she is, or not she, I meant Lucy in the book, but in this book, he is the main antagonist. He is the monster that Lucy Dark sees in the library at one point. So, what is Mortman as far as his whole character? Well, as far as his looks go, I think this is an original take of him. Like, it's not based off of the books or anything from the show. So this is literally just an artist's interpretation of what Mr. Mortman could look like. They kind of get that whole old librarian frumpy kind of look there. I kind of mentioned that he kind of reminds me of a Muppet because of the mouth, but I digress. Anyways, Mr. Mortman as a character, he's interesting because as far as the monsters go, as far as the adults monster go, he seems like the most level-headed of them, as well as the one that tends not to be showing off his monster form. He seems like he's the kind of leave me alone kind of attitude, like, look, you leave me do my business, I don't bother you, right? That's his shtick. And his monster form is interesting because it has a more buggy look. I guess because of the whole, I eat bugs kind of deal, right? Which I think people have mentioned that, well, in other countries, people eat bugs all the time, so it's not really that bad. But, yeah, whatever. But yeah, he, it's weird because in the story in here, in this game, he sympathized with, like, the bugs and hornets and all that. It's, you should leave them alone. But this guy's a hypocrite because he's a bug monster, eat bugs. So it's like, okay, what is it, man? But yeah, his tasks are pretty much like dive a garbage dumpster to get some bugs, shelf return books, take small buggy snacks, shop for food, read some books, control his hiccup attack, rest, enjoy a low-fat dessert, hide from monsters in the library, which is funny, and then it's just like, water bushes, and this, shop for vanilla, yeah, some stuff there normally. Now, I would show you an animation task, but I'm going to hold off on him because he is going to be needed for a scene that will be introduced a little bit later on here. But as I speak, let's go ahead and talk about the next character that's associated with the book, The Girl Who Cried Monster. I picked the wrong option by mistake, but yeah, no, this is Mrs.Dark. Mrs.Dark is the motherly character of the game. It's interesting because originally in the game file, she actually was wearing a gray jacket, but they changed it to more of what she is seen in her design here. Now, she, like Mortman, isn't designed based off of the books covered or what she's appeared in the TV show in the 90s. But what's interesting about her is that she's based in the story of The Girl Who Cried Monster. It's the spoiler alert, the twist is revealed that the Darks are actually monsters, and they actually eat other monsters, and the reason why they wanted Mortman for dinner was because they learned about there was a monster in the territory, and they're like predators that go after other monsters. So that's the thing there, and it's like, oh no, oh, why didn't Lucy go there? Oh, well, she's still a baby, so she doesn't get her monster teeth yet, you know. But yeah, it's so dumb. I digress. But yeah, in the game, her role, she is basically a mother. She is like the mother figure of the game. She's the only mom there. So anything like any type of mom thing you can think of, Mrs. Dark is taking that place. There's been occasions where she actually works with the kids as well as other humans, but she tends not the tendency like to get into their business. She doesn't like other monsters for sure. She tells that to Mortman. But for the most part, she seems like the kind of motherly kind of, oh, you know, let's have a good grand old time and let's be, friends, and that Leave It to Beaver's style you know what I'm talking about, that kind of style to her. I'm referencing some really old stuff here. I'm sure they don't even know what that is. So basically, the motherly role you usually see in the Marge Simpson, let's put it that way. But more fierce. But yeah, Mrs. Dark. Her monster form is interesting because it's more of a Nanga looking, so it's a snake monster. And I believe the reason they kind of went with that was because in the show, it kind of showed them having like these weird monster teeth fangs. And I'm guessing snakes are predatory when it comes to other other creatures. So I guess their reasoning is that, oh, maybe she's like that's her style, I guess. So yeah, she's an Anga, but she wait for distracted prey. Piece evidence together, investigate neighbors, make a nice headdress, make the neighbors jealous, contribute to community safety, rest, spy on neighbors' lives, decorate houses, celebrate. So basically, she's like the type of character, and like her whole main shtick in this story is that she moved into HorrorTown because she wanted to make sure before her family comes in, she wants to make sure, okay, this place is safe, right? And it's revealed later on that Lucille and Randy, who are her two kids, are at the age of being in college. So you're looking at like young adults, late teenagers. So that's an interesting demographic. Also, like I mentioned before, Lucy is now changed to Lucille Dark because to not be confused with Lucy in the game. The one that Pixowl made for this whole game thing here. And what's interesting with this character is we do not have any reference or seen anything talking about her husband, Mr. Dark. And there's speculations on why that is. It could either be two theories, either that the man has now died, rest in peace, or they got a nasty divorce. I don't know. But it's obvious that this character is single, I guess. So there we go. She does love to have her kids come by, and there has been occasions in the story that they did actually come by for Christmas, but other than that, they kind of kept in touch with their mom. It'd be interesting to see their kids come in, either one or two of them. Like both of them would be great. If one of them comes in, that's fine. But it'd be interesting to see how they kind of develop and what they were going to do with them and what kind of story they want to associate with them inside the game. But I digress. Like Mortman, I'm not going to do anything with her because I want to keep this to because she's going to be needed for a scene that I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about the next scene that got introduced later on. So the scene in question I wanted to talk about here is the one right here, the Gnomes Garden. This is based off of the book Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes. The design of these lawn gnomes are actually based off of, what you'll notice is that a lot of them are either going to be based off of the books, the show, the 90s show, or it's going to be based off of the Goosebumps movie that came out. And what was interesting is that certain monsters were based off of the movies originally, but then he may have changed it later on. But these ones are based off of the movies, as you can see the way they kind of look here. Although all of them here have, they all look the same color. They're actually not. Only one of them costs currency, unfortunately, but we're going to summon them just in case so you guys get to see what they look like. They got their little pickaxe here, and they kind of do this little action here. So basically, kind of like what you see in the movies or in the games, they act just like this, where they kind of, be little terrors, but you got to remember that, oh yeah, they're gnomes, so you could just throw them and they'll break because they're not really made out of... And I actually do like how they kind of handle it in the movies, the way they kind of move around. And even in the game, they kind of do a pretty decent job with them going around terrorizing people. Like right here, But yeah, in the whole story and whatnot, they're basically mischievous little creatures that, if I understand from the story, it turns out that they're actually afraid of dogs, or it's hard to, like, there's other, I think there's like there was a second sequel book of some kind that's like implied they're aliens. I don't know. This whole story just kind of goes off the deep end, but it is quite silly with these as characters, but what can you do? It's what it is, right? And yeah, I figured that will be somewhat of an interesting task there. Now, I might as well go ahead and before I talk about, normally the next character is going to be something I was going to talk about mainly, but I'm gonna not do that yet because I want to make sure I get all the characters introduced before I show you the scene. So I'm gonna skip him for now. I'm gonna jump into the next character that I'm gonna show off, which is Mrs. Maaargh. I love how I have to say it like that. Now, Mrs. Maaargh's character, Mrs. Maaargh's character is it's weird because if you look on the game model here, it's actually more accurate to the book than it is in the picture here. And the reason why I'm saying this is because in the story, it is described how Mrs. Maaargh doesn't wear any shoes. She wears sandals because of her big feet, because it's implying that, oh, she's actually a monster, right? And the design of her is mostly based off of the cover arts that I think, yeah, Jim Jacobus did, because he also did the 2000s book covers. And from that, they kind of symbolized that with the book of... and it's weird, too, because something that I want to note here, if you go to Creature Teacher that she's based off of, the cover art here is actually not from Creature Teacher. This is actually based off of the Most Wanted story, The Final Exam, I think is what it's called. So it's interesting, but yeah, this is basically taking from the cover art here. And would you know that her monster form is literally based off of the cover art? So I believe that what they did was they kind of said, all right, what do you see as this woman? What does she look like as a character? All right. So that's the whole thing there. What's interesting with Mrs. Maaargh is that she is a school teacher. She's basically the teacher substitute kind of deal. And not substitute, but you know what I mean. She's the teacher character in the game, her whole shtick. And interesting enough with her is the fact that as far as her whole style goes, she let's just put it this way. It's quite I'm just stalling here for time. But anyways, I might as well, maybe it'll come back to me if I'm talking about this here. So, she does the grocery shopping, outbursts of anger, Mortman. Oh, that was what it was. The task reminds me what it was. So in the game, they basically had this character and Mortman be a thing. So they're actually more of a couple. So it's not guaranteed that they're actually in love, but you can tell that they actually kind of look out for one another, right? And it's kind of implying that they're kind of in a date relationship. It's kind of like, the best way to describe it was, I guess, kind of like how I'm using Simpsons again. I'm sorry, but it's like how you see Mrs. Krabappel and Principal Skinner used to interact back, like when they were a thing, but they weren't. I feel like that's kind of like what's going on here in a sense, where they kind of look out for one another, and they both have the same kind of hatred with kids. Her in particular, though, it's more so I want to eat kids. But it's kind of weird, her story with that. Like, she still wants to eat kids, but in the same time, she kind of helps. Well, no, I'm trying to think of exactly, but she plays a role. She plays the role pretty nicely, but she is not afraid to show that she is a monster. Whereas Mr. Mortman's more closeted and kind of in himself, that he would only show his monster form if he really needs to. She's just like, nah, I'm letting you know I'm a monster and I want to eat your kids. So yeah, great teacher. But yeah, so that's all it's here. Also, why spy on Mortman? That's kind of creepy. But okay, whatever. We'll do that there. There is also one other character I want to talk about, but I'm debating on not whether to. I'll introduce him here. Now, normally I was going to hold him off later on, but this guy is a main character to the story, and he was originally introduced during an event, which I was going to talk about when he came there, but he became a permanent resident, and he's kind of like a main character anyway, so, or not a main character, but a main OC, so I might as well talk about him here. So let me just jump into where he is now. And of course, I'm talking about Middle Jesus himself, Uncle Satyr, the shady business guy who looks kind of weird and suspicious. Like, this is what he looks like here. So this is the man in question, Satyr, and he is the owner of the pawn shop, that mechanic that you get to run through, and the gimmick of him selling stuff, and he's open 24/7. So he's like, kind of like, not really like Mr. Krabs, but he's always about thinking business-wise and thinking, how do I make a quick buck kind of deal, right? And he's kind of a shady guy, right? His whole backstory and all that kind of makes you think, okay, what did he do, and why is he, how does he know all these connections? Why is he so chill when it comes to monsters? And it's just like all that weird stuff. And yeah, there is a monster form of him, but that was only because of Slappy when he gave him a gift during Christmas. But it's not like he's actually a monster. It's implying in the story. So I think he kind of inherited the monster afterwards, but he's more of a humanish. But he's that weird kind of guy. The design of him is interesting, and according to someone on the development team, if I'm gonna take this with a grain of salt, but according to what I've understand from the development team, Satyr is actually based off of someone within the team, probably back when this game was being made. So they must have had a team member that kind of looked like this and was like, hey, we're going to put you in the game and kind of use you as this. So, yeah. So just know that this could be a potential game designer, someone who worked at Pixowl at some point, and this is him now in the game. So take that as what you will. But yeah, his whole thing is think about business, do a car thing, perform sales pitch, all that stuff, lollipop, all that interesting stuff here. Normally I was going to talk about this during the Christmas update, but he kind of got excluded out, and you could buy him outside. However, his questline is based off of the Christmas stuff, so it's so weird, but okay, whatever. I'll mention it during the Christmas if I don't forget. But there's a good reason why I'm doing this now and mentioning these characters, and that is because of the scenes they're included, and they got introduced to one of the major characters and the most well-known character in the series. And this is weird because this character wasn't technically the main mascot to Goosebumps. Oh, let me help you with that, buddy. But he ended up becoming the main face to Goosebumps. He became the unofficial mascot officially as of when they got rebooted back in 2018. And of course, I'm talking about Slappy the dummy. Well, he's no dummy, but the puppet. Yeah, so there he is there. He is 100% being based off of the cover art. 100%. He has his own kind of style to it, like most people do with his, but he basically is on point to how he's been described as in the book, as well as in the cover art that Tim Jacobus did a way ago, as well as the newer books also kind of applied to. And they've also inherited this kind of style into the movie. It's interesting because this is actually not based off of the movie. The movie did come out before this game did. However, what's interesting is that this character itself, the design, is kind of based off of its own uniqueness. So, take it as you will. It's interesting because he is the main villain of the story. He is the main troublemaker of the whole game, as he tends to try to do certain things and try to cause mischief and mayhem. And he's basically just like in the books that he's based off of. He exactly 100% acts just like he does. So he does the whole, tricking characters to do things and all that stuff and more. Got to a point where people just kind of stopped ignoring him, and there's this whole huge quest line that I kind of covered where he took over the town, as it were. But then it was just like, oh well, that was a joke. But yeah, that was this. It's interesting. He is a psychopath, let's put it that way. But he is not really like the whole I'm evil kind of deal. What's interesting about Slappy is that he despises humans, and he's like, oh, you will be my slave. You will do exactly as I say, or else I'm gonna do something and you're gonna be blamed for it because no one's gonna trust you because I'm a dummy. That's his stick. That's what he does. What he wants you to do as a slave, I have no idea. That's his stick. That's what he wants. But the interesting thing is, when it comes to monsters, he actually has more respect. Like, he tries to represent the monsters. He's just like, look, I want to help you guys do this. Like, he's kind of implying that, he wants to be the kind of, like, ruler of the monsters. Like, I'm the leader. And although some monsters would follow him, most of the main ones, like Dark, Mortman, Marr, those characters, they tend to just ignore him and be like, oh, whatever, get out of here, you stupid puppet. Like, literally, that's come to that point. So, yeah, he is a character. He's one of the main guys. He is our first premium in the game. He's very easy to get, and he's in the welcome pack, but whatever. But, yeah, he has stuff like write an autobiography, give a ventriloquist show, play pranks in the library, evil laugh, fine-tune evil plans, take a harmless ride, disgusting meals, all this stuff. So basically kind of shows the type of character he is. Now, the reason why I showed you all those characters before and I mentioned Slappy is because part of the quest line will have you, with Slappy, do one of the main buildings here to summon, which is this right here. And I just remembered, I didn't really show off the uncovered when it comes to the Gnome Garden scene, but I think it's pretty much exposed itself, so it's not too bad. But yeah, over here, this unique building, the old tavern. If you look closely, it actually is looking like an old tavern, like it used to be, and then abandoned and dilapidated. Like, it's not really abandoned because there's lights in there, but it's shown like it's like abandoned slash what do you call it? Condemned, not to be entered in for some whatever reason. But yeah, the old tavern. So as you can see, these are all the monster forms. So there's Seder, there's Marr, there's Dark, and there's Mortman. And of course there's Slappy. So this is why I kind of talked about all these other characters that got introduced here, rather than the other ones there. I did mention with Marr, which came from Creature Teacher. Slappy, of course, comes from the Night of the Living Dummy series. However, there's so many books with Slappy now that he originally started from there, but now he might as well just be, you know who he is. So he's like, he can come from wherever you want it to come from. He has, for God's sake, he has his own book series, Slappy World. So yeah, you know, there you go. He takes Curly's job now, which is sad. But yeah, let's go ahead and summon these characters and monsters and show them all off. So there's Mortman's bug form, you know. Him scare, like all of these characters are going to be scaring one person. So let's just see. There's Mortman as a scary form. Look at Mrs.Dark. You see how Dark is like more of a snake woman, kind of Nanga kind of deal. It's weird too because the puppet look design, it's interesting because she has this weird kind of tongue flicking animation like a normal snake does. Marr looks exactly like her cover art as far as the scary creature, you know, face goes. Like her body is basically the same. It's just the face that's interesting. Like there she is, the monster face. That monster face, and there's Lucille again. Slappy, of course, does his little tricycle like a certain other puppet. I won't mention who, but he likes playing games. And, you know, those games can be a live or die experience. So there he goes, just around there. And, of course, there's Satyr. I pointed this out, but Satyr's costume when he's, like, evil gets darker for some reason. I don't know why. It's very odd. But there you go. There's going to do that kind of stuff there. And, yeah, they're going to go ahead and run around like idiots doing that kind of stuff there. So you get the idea. As far as what his monster form is for Satyr, I have no idea. He's like this green monster kind of. Like, it's a weird original thing, but whatever. Alright, so now that these characters have done their little scares, we'll have them do certain things. So let's have Slappy. Let's have him do a harmless ride. So let's have him ride on his little tricycle. There he is. Riding his little tricycle, you know, like any villain would do. Mortman will have you see a good outside activity you can do here. Well, of course, there's the make a list, but I'm not going to do that. I want to do something that's a little bit... Oh, yeah, you know what? Small buggy snack. That's good for you. So let's see this. Yeah, he's going to go, oh, yeah, click this, eat it in his mouth. He's like, good. So we got that going on. Mrs.Maaargh, sorry, I have to always do that. There's two things, you know, I can have her outburst of anger. Oh no, hold on a second, there's something I forgot. Yeah, apparently Mrs. Marr has a cat named Mr. Muffin. And what's weird is Mr. Muffin as a character, for some reason, at some point, you'll start seeing this NPC cat walking around. You can interact with it, whatnot, but this is implied that this is Mrs. Maaargh's cat. And, you know, I'm going to click this here again, and there he is. There's Garfield. I always joke about that's looking like Garfield, but, you know, you can't really blame me when there's certain elements of, like, Pookie in the game, in the lore right here. Like, I'm going to go to the toy store real quick just to show you, you know, the fact that Pookie is a thing. And there's Dustin playing his video games. Although it looks like he's just kind of hovering in the hands in the air because the assets have not loaded in yet. So come on, let's do this quickly. Hold on now. Hold on, it's going to be worth it. Okay, yeah, okay. So this is what I was talking about here. Like, look over there. Look at this bear right here. Look at this. That's Pookie. So, of course, and yeah, they actually did do a Garfield game. I mentioned this way long ago, but yeah. Also, yeah, there's the Goosebumps 2 plug-in, so that's a thing. But yeah, this is him normally playing a video game, so there you go. And that's that there. So this is going on a little bit long, so I feel like these are going to be in multiple parts. So when we come back, we're going to be looking at more continuation. So until then, see you in a bit.